in the near future, when businesses have come together to get frameworks and better context to actually help, to know that it's not just a drive-by shooting, but connected to various other activities, and it's nicely coordinated. Not everything, of course, big country, lots of diversity, but more than now. And they recognize that RIF is so important in this. And they shower you with money. What would you do differently now than you would do now?
They're going to shower us.
They shower you with money. And it's a basic idea is, right now you operate under constraints. But what would that look like if you didn't?
You know what would be so wonderful? So here's what you should not forget. One poor child in 300 owns a book. You got that? One poor child in 300 owns a book. And I always follow Stephen Krashen. And Stephen Krashen said it's more than that. But RIF says one poor child in 300. There are several studies that say that. In 300 owns a book. Is that not pathetic? And then you say, well, people need to go to the library. Do you know what? Living in eastern Kentucky and having been all around the country, there are places where there's no library. There's a program that I work with in Tuhola, Washington, which is almost in the ocean. It is American Indians. There are 800 children in the school. There's one store, 100% free and reduced, no industry. And those children guard those books. If you could hear the stories that we hear about people who have gotten a book at a yard sale and they hold on to those books and they read them over and over and over. So if I had all the money in the world, we'd all be having us some books, and they'd be wonderful books, and we'd meet authors, and we'd have scientists to come in and show people how to do. I mean, the one thing we didn't talk about with the arts is, as a student myself, and when I taught, I always had children do things so they could learn. It's so easy to do a math workshop. How do you teach fractions? Okay, we're taking a Hershey bar. Do you want a half of it or a fourth of it? Are you sure? It's a lot easier to teach fractions with a Hershey bar. That's
you can have half as long as I get the biggest.
you can. You only get the fourth, and y'all two can split the last one.
Teach fairness as well.
And that's even how I taught English. You remember that good old poetry? Because I could not stop for death, it kindly stopped for me. I have students draw it. Children can't even understand poetry. But when you draw Emily Dickinson, you can see it. That drawing, that's how I got through all my science classes. I'd read something, then I'd try to draw it. Because if you can't draw it, you don't get it. I would do teacher institutes. Our teachers, if you look, I also am a big fan of Common Core, because our teachers sometimes don't have the science and math background to be able to even work with the students in the way that they need to. My mother was a science major. Way back in the old days in the South, if you had a baby, you had to quit teaching. So when she had me, she had to quit teaching. She went back to school when I was back to teaching when I was 12. We lived in a little town. The superintendent called her and said, Miss Blankenship, don't you have a college degree? She said, yes, I have 2 of them. He said, we need you to teach first grade. She said, I teach science. He said, well, you have all those children. Surely you can teach first grade. So as a science major, she had the children do all these little experiments. I'm not going to tell you what college came in, but a college came in to evaluate her and said, Miss Blankenship, those children can't do that. They're in the first grade. She said, well, they've been doing it for 2 years. You're slow. They're doing fine. I would have teacher training institutes, and we'd work with teachers about using our RIF books, using our RIF initiatives. We'd talk about how to help children pick out their own books. We'd try to create their own little libraries. You know, the American Library Association suggests that if we can help children get their own little libraries that they can be proud of, 25 books in a little situation. Think about Thomas Jefferson. He had 7,000 books, gave it to the Library of Congress. How many did John Harvard have?
A little more than 500.
See, and so if we could have the Harvard-sized library, we'd be in good shape. That's what I would do. I'd do things with technology. I'd be putting people having business and industry come into the schools. Did you know that we have RIF children who do not know that men can read? I had an author in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, a man. He's reading to a Head Start group. The book that he wrote that just won the first and second grade Children's Choice Award. I've known him since before he was famous. Got him down there. He's reading, and the children were kind of acting up. And so teacher said, what's going on? And they just said, oh, we just didn't know men knew how to read. Our children, there's a large population of our children who don't see men reading. I'd be doing that. So is that enough? That's enough. Give me some money and I'll
It's
spend
nice
it.
if you give people unlimited funds.
You didn't leave any left over for me.
Teachers should fund you. I want to bring up something that's a bit of a concern that's coming up, and that has to do with the intersection between reading and science. And that was an interesting thing that came up in early discussions that I was involved in, with the Common Core now having reading for understanding in the sciences. So the students are now supposed early on to read about science. We want, in the new next generation science standards, students to explore science through the practices, which includes a lot of, as we just heard, that has to do with language, broadly speaking. And there's a fear, there might be a confusion in the elementary level, particularly in the beginning part where it's so important. There's a fear, and I want to hear your take on that. That out of convenience, and because teachers may not be trained sufficiently oftentimes to become more active, that they see the fulfillment of the science in the reading alone. What would you see as, and I've seen already a few things that address that, what would you see as being a mechanism in the future to prevent that misconception to take root, or let's say the convenience that comes from feeling, oh my God, how am I supposed to do these 8 science practices? I focus on what Common Core tells me to do.
Well,
Steve.
sure, I'll take a stab at it first, but it's a real concern, because what that would do is it would take us right back to the 1960s when the only science curriculum was a textbook curriculum,
Yes,
and we don't want to go there. You know, the way that we try to do it in Seeds of Science, Roots of Reading, is to make sure that people do all 4 of those parts: read it, write it, talk it, do it, and you don't forget to do it. And by the way, as a literacy person, my big discovery is how important the doing it is to the enhancement of the literacy, particularly the acquisition of vocabulary. When you use that word while you're doing something, you just dramatically increase the likelihood that you'll remember it and the like. And by the way, words are not just words. Words are the things we use to name our knowledge. So you're not just learning words, you're acquiring knowledge. And it's important to remember that too. But you know, the good part about the reading science relationship, because there are so many teachers who probably didn't have great experiences with science when they were in school, and particularly when they were at the university, and they took a science course that does not represent best practices with respect to promoting inquiry, that they don't have a lot of love for science, and for many of them, it's a scary enterprise. So we actually think that if you can sort of backdoor them into science through literacy, which is something that a lot of teachers are comfortable teaching, and if you can get them hooked on the importance of the writing, talking, and doing part, and not just the reading part, that you can actually help them feel more comfortable doing the inquiry-based science. But I think it's something that we will have to monitor carefully, because I don't want to underestimate the risk involved in reverting to that. But you know, the other thing to say about the Common Core standards in relationship to the new generation science standards, and all the talk about how important language and literacy are to science, is to remember that we have a real opportunity here, because both from the literacy side and from the science side, we're getting the same message. You have to implement literacy within the disciplines. And if you just view it as the purview of literature, we're not doing our jobs in public education. So I think that we really need to push that envelope as hard as we can. And remember that we have a real opportunity here to make sure that kids use literacy in the name of acquiring knowledge and inquiry in science.
Thank you. Very encouraging. Judy, is there something you want to add to that?
I'm just thinking about my money. So with my money, we could do some wonderful teacher institutes, and we could equip these classrooms. You go to some of the classrooms, and they don't even have any equipment to do anything with. RIF last year gave out 4 million books. If I had all that money, I'd love to give out about 20 million. We could spend it 50 million.
And you mentioned libraries. You know, the other place we need to do something about books and libraries is public schools. Because you know, with cutbacks in public education, you know, one of the casualties is school libraries. You know, I'm sure here in Washington, where you've got lots of resources and like things are great, but come out to California. We don't have, most schools in California do not have school libraries. Most elementary schools. I mean, it's a real shame, and that's a place where we could, you know, we could make a real inroads in exactly this initiative we're talking about.
And when I have all that money, I'll try to have an organized effort for business and industry to come in, because I think, having worked in Kentucky when Toyota Motor came to Kentucky, it was so interesting because so many folks in business and industry wanted to help. But if you don't have something specifically that the business world can do, then you know they're at a loss. They're looking for educators, community-based organizations to help them do a good job with their funding and their time and their efforts. So you know we could do something there too. I am really, really, really sorry, but we have to get out of here. This isn't like we could just sit and talk visit. You want to say? Would you like to?
I just wanted to mention one thing. The question was also asked because of an interesting confluence here about what David said, and that RIF is not just handing out books. This is the doing. So these little sheets that tell an educator, a parent, a teacher, someone in a community that you can take this book and do something with it. It's, I think, one of the essential links that we see between those two domains of science, art, and reading and writing that I actually personally like very much. And I think it's a great move forward to have more of this available. And I certainly want to thank the panel. It was a very interesting discussion. And I want to give the last word to our host. Judy, okay, then
I've
please.
already said it. I've got all that money. I'll just be waiting for it. And please take your books and enjoy them and read those little activities sheets, which even go into the teaching of physics. And so thank you so much for being here with us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.